Hello and welcome to my watch reviews. If you're new here, my name is Mike and today we are finally looking at a Phoibos on this channel. Now, I've been a fan of Phoibos for a very long time. I reviewed a lot of their watches over on my main channel a few years ago and was always impressed by their offerings. And here we are with the latest version of the Apollo, which is a range that they've done over the years, different versions. This is the latest one, and there's a lot to like about this watch, definitely, but there's a few little nuances that I think they could do better. So stick around, I'm going to show you all the ins and outs of this watch, close up, personal, and on the microscope. This is what I like about Phoibos. It's all original stuff. Their designs might be subjective to some people, but they put a lot of detail and a lot of effort into them, and it's like nothing else. You can tell a Phoibos a mile away from everything else. Just look at what we're seeing here. We have a very textured dial. It's also sort of layered because the lume is below the dial surface. Very unique indices, aren't they? Those sort of U-shaped things. Hands, well, I've never seen a set of hands quite like that. Yeah, it's brilliant stuff. And the Apollo, of course, is to do with the moon and space and all of those good things. There is a similarity between this one and another Apollo that I reviewed a long time. I'll put a shot up now. That one was very original in its design, and it was a left-handed watch, and me being a left-handed person really enjoyed it, hence the reason it's still in my collection. You can see the similarities. They have the same style of crown and they have the same markings on the bezel as well. So the theme continues, and you see that through a lot of the Phoibos models where they sort of progress and develop as they produce newer versions. Back to the dial though. Shame it hasn't really got a chapter ring. I do like the minute markers and the sort of green accents you've got as well at the main hour markings, but I think a chapter ring would just give it a little bit more depth because they do like doing these layers, and it could have added something extra. But don't get me wrong, I think it's great. I love that texture. Also like the fact that they've colour matched the date window. These again are quite subjective. I know a lot of you like it. I like it from a visual point of view, but I'm now 52 years old. My eyes are not very good, and anything coloured like that I tend to not be able to read. I need a white dial with black numbers, or the the reverse of that. But the window is big enough, just enough to see. I just can't see it even with my glasses on, but that's again just my poor eyesight. Here we are on the microscope, and this is where I become a real big fanboy of Phoibos, because they've never disappointed me with their dials. And here's another really epic one. I mean, just look at all the detail we have got here. You have all the depth. That Phoibos Kraken Octopus logo is well done. The 12 o'clock is sunken along with all the index around the dial, and then the ones and twos are raised lume by the looks of things. You have a minute track running around the outside, and I didn't notice this until now, that is sort of, well, it is raised, isn't it? I don't know what else you could call it. And that is nice. Gives it that context. And that's what I was saying about them earlier on, that they sort of have everything in layers. So you've got this, then this, and then down there as well, which gives it a really interesting feel. I'm sure the handset is subjective to many. I personally like them. I think we're going to go one step closer and go a little bit closer to the dial and have a proper good look. Okay, at this magnification we are guaranteed to potentially see some errors, but yes, look how good it is. I love that depth. I don't know how these are done, to be honest, and obviously the texture on the dial close up is superb. Those lume, nicely applied there, hasn't it? The little green markers as well. I'm guessing all this is loomed. I'm going to do a lume shot in a minute because that is another one of Phoibos's main party pieces. But yeah, as we go around, I can't fault or can't find a fault at all. Can you? I mean, maybe there's a little black dot in there, you know, clutching at straws. I might be able to get that out with a bit of Microscope, but that is going to be really small in there. We'll try. Excuse the dirt of the Microscope. Nope. And then move around. So yeah, what a great effort on a dial. Let's just get in on the hands. I always like to look at the edges of the hands and the loom filler as well. Typically they're both aligned together. My mistake. But yeah, that looks good, doesn't it, to me? I like the way the black joins the white. It's slightly crooked, but again, you're not going to see that with the naked eye. One thing to notice, there doesn't appear to be any loom on that second hand, does there? Tell me what you think of the dial in the comments. Tell me what you think about their logo as well. I'm a big fan of it, to be honest with you, but I know that might trigger some of you. Okay, let's give you the loom shot. Here we go then. This is what I know Phoibos for, their loom. They always boast that they do 15 layers of loom. I don't know how they do that personally, but it's definitely very effective. This is a time lapse over 20 minutes, which is longer than most reviews. It's very powerful. It dims now with the camera, but trust me, it's still really bright for a long time. Some of the best loom you can get. It's a very utilitarian look about this watch. It's all brushed finishing, certainly on the bracelet. Everything is solid stainless steel. I love the fact it's got a crown at 4. Crown guards are nicely cut and machined. The crown itself is great. You've got the Phoibos logo on there. It almost looks a kind of titanium feel. Plenty of grip, dead easy to use, really nice. Looking at the side view, you can see that vertical linear brushing. It's machining rather than brushing, I feel. Done very well. It's not easy to do that because you run the risk of rounding the corners depending on what sort of abrasive you're doing or what machine you're using. So I'm very impressed with that. Looking at the bezel as well, now that's got castellations, I think is the only right way to do it. But look, every corner of them or every side of them has got a chamfer on it, which is brilliant. Really nice to see. Plenty of grip from the bezel. I'll show you that in a moment when I do these shots in hand. Bracelet is a H-link and solid stainless steel. There's not a sharp edge to be found on it. It's all brushed nicely. You've got screwed links as well. Take it down to the clasp. It says Phoibos. Press the pushers and you've got your mill clasp as well. It's also got the on-fly adjustment within that clasp, which I'll show you later in the video. But the clasp, I think they can improve on. Just putting Phoibos on is okay. Put their little octopus logo. I think that's far better. I'm sure I've seen it on other models. There's no reason why they can't do it on this. It's all about branding, and I would think it would look great there. Flip the watch over to the case back. Now the case back has got plenty of writing on it, which is one of my bugbears, that people don't use that space, and Phoibos have used it well enough here. But I'm going to put some shots up of all of the other Phoiboses that I've ever reviewed, and you tell me what's wrong with this one, because they've not put any form of design. Okay, the last version of the Apollo that I looked at was just sort of an etched spaceman on it, but all the other ones have had some really great casebacks, and it's what I've known Phoibos for, and I was hoping to see that on this model, and I'm very disappointed that they've sort of cheeked out on that, because it's one of their main accolades, I think, is their casebacks. I've always enjoyed them, so it is a real disappointment to see that they've dropped it. I hope it's only been dropped just for this model and that they bring it back on other models. Really, really important. So this is the carry case it comes with. I've seen these before from Phoibos, and I've also seen them from other brands. Very standard. You get some instructions, you get a warranty card, 2-year warranty on these. You can actually get 2 watches in these at a push, which is quite useful if you want to go away. Of course, here it is. Let's get the measurements out of the way. The case itself is 39 and with the bezel and the castellations you're looking at 40 millimeters. Thickness 11.4. That's lovely. That's all because of the movement in there, which I'll show you shortly. Lug to lug 47.3, and the lug width is, I think, 20 millimeters. We'll call it 20 millimeters, and the bracelet is tapering only ever so slightly by 1 millimeter. So with those measurements, let's have a look at what it looks like on my wrist. Here we go, 7-inch wrist, and yes, I'm left-handed, so I wear it on my right. That thin case makes all the difference on this Diver Star watch. It doesn't stick up too high, lugs curve around nicely to conform to your wrist. I've got absolutely no complaints on the wearability of this watch. Here's your movement. It's the Miyota 9015, hand wind hacking, high beat, 24 joules, and I quite like these. I prefer them, in all honesty, to the NH35s, etc. from a cosmetic point of view. I like the finishing on the rotor and the sort of sintered bit they put on the end, the Côte de Genève striping, and the golden wheels that they have, and there's a couple more here for the auto winds. There you go. These Miyotas, if you don't know, will only wind the movement anti-clockwise. The rotor goes this way. You can see these wheels here, and they are basically the reversal wheels that wind the barrel arbor, that winds the spring. So when it goes this way, which is where you get all the noise, isn't doing anything at all, and then spinning it the other way, you've got more resistance, as you can see, as this watch is clearly a little bit more wound. And that's, I think, why you get so much noise out of Miyotas, purely because the tighter the spring, I think the more resistance they seem to get. You can see it just bounces back. What I'm also impressed about is this. This is the movement spacer ring, and that is one solid bit of metal. And that's great, because far too often they're plastic and you have to really mess about, pry them out and all the rest of it. This is proper metal, which is great to see. You've got a case gasket here, and there's actually a gasket that runs in here which I've removed, so you have double gaskets, which I don't think I've ever seen, and yeah, that's impressive. Here we go on the Timegrapher. It is Miyota 9000 series movement, so we should see some high beat action going on here, and I just need to turn the gain down a little bit. So this is very typical Miyota. There's your high beat. So it's 49 on the lift angle, and it's beating at 28,800 per hour. Beat error, that's the gap between the tick and the tock, how far that is out. So there's more tick than tock, or more tock than tick, by 3 milliseconds, and that's why we're getting two lines. They need to be closed up a little bit. I don't like that. Amplitude, I don't think the watch is completely fully wound, so it's a little bit down. The rate is okay. There's a few little specks of noise here. That's very, very typical of Miyota. Just put it in, well, crown up position. Like I say in all my reviews, we're just making sure that the numbers pretty much stay the same. To do this properly, you've got to run it at least a few minutes in each position for gravity to take its effect and the watch to run as it should. But we can just have a quick glance at it at the moment, and we're not seeing anything soul destroying, which I wouldn't expect to see anyway on a brand new movement of any kind. It should be running all right. Not happy with the beat error. I do think that can be closed up, but there we go. Miyota, they're okay, nice enough, affordable. You get the high beat, which means it should be in theory a little bit more accurate, and you get the nicer smooth tick. Amplitude has dropped quite a lot, and I think the amplitude on these should be at least 280, so I probably should put some more wind in it, in all fairness. Okay, the watch in hand section. So we'll start with the bracelet. This is the articulation. You can see it wraps around my finger quite nicely, and on that side there is absolutely no sharp edges. You can see everything is deburred just enough, and the brush finish as well. Little bit of wiggle but not too excessive. End links are in absolutely firmly. You have got double quick release spring bars, which is really useful on watches like this. I wish other brands would do this, because they do these end links so tight now that if you ever take it off, I don't know, to put another strap on or whatever you want to do, putting them back on, you end up usually scratching the case down here. Let me just zoom in a little bit. So yeah, those things are a really good idea, because it saves you scratching and faffing about for ages. I said this has got a on the fly adjustment, and here it is. You push this one down and it just comes out and clicks back in. There are several clicks on this rail here, you can see. I think there's about 3 or 4. It's hard to do on the camera, of course, it always is. But there you go. So that's what, just over a link or half a link. That's a smaller link, isn't it? So you're gaining a link or losing a link, depending on which way you want to look at it. There's the clasp again. Not the most fan of it. Well, just the fact that they haven't put a decent logo on there. Crown is really nice. Screw down crown, so you've got the 200 meters of water resistance. First click, you're going to move the date, of course. Second position, moves the hands all quite nicely. And then we'll look at the bezel. Bezel's 120 click. It isn't the best bezel in the world. You can fidget with it, obviously it works. It just feels a little bit clunky. There's not a lot of backlash at all. I think all brands have seemed to have nailed the alignment. That looks pretty decent. But yeah, it just doesn't feel as nice as other watches that I've had. But then depends on what you want to use your bezel for. Of course, the dial is great. This watch comes in so many different colours. I'll put a few on the screen now. So these are the colourways you have. You've got these DLC black ones with the yellow dial, with the white dial. Then you've got black with sort of white and grey, I guess. Black also with the faux patina, of course, all the stainless steel ones as well. And then the blue one, which we're reviewing, and the blue in the black, which I'm not too sure whether it works. These are an older type of model from when they made them in titanium. Prices do vary, so obviously the DLC ones are slightly more, but if we base it on the $460, that's about 375 UK pounds. That's quite pricey. You get 20% off at the moment to the end of January, I do believe, with this discount code you've got there. That brings it then down. I'm trying to think what the maths was. It's about $368 or 300 UK pounds, and at that price it's pretty good, because let's face it, you are buying a watch that you're not going to see many people or any other person wearing. You get all of their design aesthetics as long as you like it, because then it is a Phoibos watch. It's not a copy of anything else, and that has to come at a price. And I'm also surmising that they make them in lesser numbers. They probably don't sell them as much as some of the other well-known brands that we feature on this channel, and therefore the costs are a little bit higher. You've also got the Miyota movement in there as well, and that costs a little bit more. So you want something unique. I think at £300 it's a good bargain, but at £375 you're stretching it. One thing to note is they do actually have a European website and warehouse, and that's very important, because in theory, certainly if you live in Europe, you're not going to pay your taxes for import, whereas I won't be too sure about us in the UK, because we're not part of Europe anymore, and we do like to get hammered for tax at every available opportunity. Right, my criticism, and it's to do with the screw pins. So these are the spare links, and I've had to have a right song and dance to just remove these 4, because I've had to take stuff off one side and other side and everything else. Look, we've got 2 sticking up. Look at them carefully. I might try and see if I can zoom in. Let's see if I can do it a bit better. There we go. Right. Firstly, the screw pins on these watches and other brands are not stainless steel. They're far too soft. Look at the marring that's happened on this one, for instance, and this one. And there's a reason they're sticking up as well. Sorry, the camera's not focusing. Excuse my fingers. Yeah, I think they're cross-threaded. I can't actually get them out. All I'm trying to do is remove them. And I think I know a thing or two about removing screws, certainly from a watch. If you don't know who I am an amateur watchmaker on my main channel. So I'm very used to things like this, and these are big screws in comparison to what I normally work with. But look at them, they just give up far too easily. I don't know if I can demonstrate a little bit here on camera. I am honestly putting a lot of force in that, and all I can feel is the screw just splitting, really. Same with this one. I mean, yeah, I'm reluctant to do it, but that one is now actually moving just a little bit. But I am putting a lot of force, and that could mean I could slip and everything else. By comparison, right, this one, there you go. So something's gone wrong with those two, and it's not the first time I've seen this, but it's a real disappointment. Make them stronger for a start so you don't knacker them up. You know, what am I going to do with this now? I've got 4 spare links that if I ever needed to use, well, I wouldn't need to use 4 if my arms got that big. But I am stuck. I've got to get those out somehow. I don't think I could ever get replacements. So it's a little bit disappointing. I think overall this is a decent watch. Yes, I'm a bit of a fanboy of Phoibos because I like the fact that they do everything their own way. And you can see that in this video. You know, they've chucked a lot of design aesthetics at it, and that's their look. And it's not too ostentatious that it would stick out. It's just something bright enough for you to enjoy. I think the changes to a Miyota movement are great because they've made the case thinner, and that is much more comfortable on the wrist. Equally, shrinking the case down to 39mm is good as well. The only bits I can criticise are, well, the lack of decorated case back, which I've got used to on Phoibos. It's a shame not to see it on this model. The screw pins, of course, was a bit of a disappointment, but I have seen that on other brands as well, so it's a general comment. And the bezel, I think the bezel action could be improved probably quite easy if they put their minds to it. If you want to go and check out Phoibos, there are links in the description to both warehouses. They're not affiliated links in any way, but for transparency they have supplied the watch for free and I don't have to give it back, but I think I've given it an independent review as best I can. Like the video if you enjoyed it, leave your comments below, I'll read them all, try to reply to as many as I can. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing, and if I've still got you here, I have got a website called time-tees.com, and I'm selling on there some merch, some t-shirts of watch related things, and also some vintage watches that I've restored and some watches that I've reviewed as well, which are continually being refreshed and recycled. So go along, subscribe to the website, and you will get email alerts when I put new things up for sale. Thank you very much. See you in the next video. Bye for now.